I didn't know what to expect when I sat down to watch Arcane League of Legends. The trailer was impressive, but I'd never played the game it was based on, and let's be honest, outside of Castlevania, video game adaptations don't exactly have a stellar track record. Seriously? We needed 6 of these? So imagine my surprise when Arcane turned out to be not just possibly the best animated series Netflix has ever come up with, it might just be one of the most well-produced, well-crafted, and downright compelling animated series I've ever watched. From the reviews I've seen, the glowing praise for this show seems almost universal, with critics citing the complex world-building, beautiful animation, mature, thought-provoking storytelling, and well-developed characters, and I can't say I disagree with any of that. You're always gonna find some cheeky dissenters in the crowd, though, and in this case, their main complaint from what I've seen seems to be that the show is too woke, like so much of the other stuff coming out of Hollywood lately. To which my response is, what are you, nuts? This show is fucking great! Okay, sure, by cheeky dissenters, I mean a couple weirdos adding me on social media who seem determined to turn every piece of content put in front of them into a culture war issue. There's probably no pleasing those people, but the fact that anyone could have such a strong dislike for a series this good really didn't make sense to me. After thinking about it for a while, though, I started to get a clearer picture, because at a glance, Arcane might appear to have certain tropes and character archetypes that would likely be designed with the intention of marketing to a woke audience on a lesser show. Many of the lead characters are women, and yes, at least one of them, almost certainly 2, are gay. The best fighter on the show is a woman. The main villain of the season is a white male. These are surface-level traits that you would typically associate with a woke project. But if the mere existence of these things is enough to trigger you and put you off the show entirely, that's a you problem. I know there's plenty of politically driven crap out there these days, and a lot of us have gotten really sensitive about it with good reason, but I think some people have started seeing it where it doesn't exist. There's nothing wrong with lead female characters who may or may not be gay when it's done well. There's nothing wrong with a female character being a badass when it's done well. Stuff like this existing was never the problem, and if you think it was, congratulations on missing the point. It takes more than that to make a show woke, unless your definition differs wildly from mine. What matters is what you do with these things once you have them, as long as you're not cheaply exploiting them for transparently political reasons and treat them with the same base level of respect and maturity you'd give anything else, you should be okay. And that's one of the areas where Arcane really shines. In fact, I think Arcane is a rarity in today's age of politically motivated culture war-provoking nonsense, in that it just might have the secret sauce to appeal to fans on both sides of this issue. If you're part of the woke mob, you've got your strong female characters and your white male villains and your POC/LGBT XYZ FJ:\ampersand representation, and if you're on the other side and value things like intelligent writing, storytelling, great characters, and keeping politics out of your entertainment, you have literally everything this show has to offer. For example, take one of the main characters, Vi. She does give off a certain impression, doesn't she? The pink hair, the distinctly unsexy clothes, the unfeminine physique, her being a fighter, all that stuff. From the character design alone, you'd think she was created specifically to market to SJWs. And yet, there are layers here. Those qualities, while present, are all superficial, and when you see her in context, she quickly rises above those superficialities and becomes a really fascinating character. Far from the Yas Queen Slay ideologue you might expect, she's someone who's had a really hard life that always seems to be pushing her into a corner, who's been forced to do morally questionable things just to survive, thinks she can solve every problem with her fists, has some pretty serious anger issues, rarely considers the consequences of her actions, and spends most of the season racked with guilt and trying to reconcile how her failure to keep her little sister safe after promising she always would resulted in her sister turning into a psychopath. I don't know about you, but that sounds like the recipe for a great character to me. And yeah, she's also really scrappy and can kick someone's ass if given half a chance. In a world where magic and steampunk technology exist, a girl being a great fighter isn't much of a stretch. If that's the hill you want to die on, there's nothing I can say that's gonna convince you otherwise, so have fun with that. Then there's the big bad of the season, Silco. At a glance, sure, just another evil-looking white guy. And he's certainly evil, don't get that twisted, but not because he's white. That's the difference. Sure, he's more than a little power-hungry and depraved, not shy about manipulating or killing people in the pursuit of his goals, but as you peel the onion back, you see he's actually more rational and nuanced than he appears at first, and might even be the lesser of two evils compared to the much more unpredictable and chaotic threat percolating in the background. He also develops a surprisingly sincere, albeit toxic AF, surrogate father-daughter relationship with Jinx, where he almost surprises himself with how much he cares about her. He's still definitely a villain, but hell, if you can make your villain sympathetic enough that I feel bad for him when he dies after you've been demonizing him all season, then I think the writers have done their job pretty damn well. And then there's our other lead character, Jinx, a self-taught tech genius who, with no formal education or training, can build complex gadgets and weapons so awesome even a guy with Silco's resources sees her as an invaluable asset. I wonder what character archetype this reminds me of. And sure, this would make for a bad character if being one-dimensionally awesome was all there was to her, but it isn't. Not even close. Jinx starts out very innocent and well-intentioned, but plagued by an unfulfilled desire to prove herself because her talents aren't ones that are valued by pretty much anyone in her life, and her efforts to help her sister and her friends only end up making more trouble for them. And when we see her as a young adult, she's become downright unhinged because of this. Not only has she grown very mentally unstable, and that's putting it lightly, but she's constantly struggling with who to trust and where her loyalty should lie, has a really murky understanding of right and wrong, and keeps making bad decisions that only end up digging her deeper into the hole she's already in. She still has a lingering attachment to her sister, still shows little specks of humanity that bubble up from time to time, but that only serves to make her descent into madness all the more tragic. And I mean tragic. For the entire season, I thought the point of the story was saving Jinx. It wasn't until the final moments of the last episode that I realized I'd been watching the origin of a villain this whole time, which made me want to go back and rewatch the entire season, because knowing this painted everything in an even darker light than I thought it had when the story started. And Arcane is full of characters like that. No one is defined by their superficial qualities. People you might think aren't that deep at first keep surprising you with how complex they really are. Others might seem like unimportant side characters when you meet them, but become very important in ways you didn't see coming later on. Relatively minor characters can end up playing pivotal roles, and characters who do almost nothing look like they have to be important somehow just based on the character design alone. I mean, just look at this. I have no clue what this chick's deal is, but damn, aren't you curious to find out? And the characters are only the tip of the iceberg. The rest of this world has just as much thought put into it. The creators of the show said these 9 episodes took 6 years to produce, and I believe it, because it looks like there's 6 years of work on display here. The animation in general is just plain stunning, and I couldn't pinpoint a single aspect of it where it looked like they slacked off even a little, with things as simple as establishing landscape shots looking absolutely gorgeous. And it can go the other way too. The very first scene of the first episode, where 2 little kids are carried out of the war zone their parents just died in, makes it clear this show is not f***ing around, and holy shit do they follow through on that. I was genuinely shocked multiple times at how dark, mature, and adult this story became. Action scenes are visceral, characters die, often in brutal, unforgiving ways, leading to some of the most emotionally gut-wrenching moments I've ever seen in a cartoon. There's even a sex scene at one point, and the writers aren't afraid to keep pushing the envelope when it comes to playing up the theme of tragedy that seems to impact every character in this thing in one way or another. And that's actually a little intimidating, because as great as season 1 is, the really juicy stuff seems like it's still to come. I don't know how much this show is influenced by the game, how many elements they're taken from it, and how many are new, but it looks as if they've only scratched the surface of what's going on here, and they spend all 9 episodes planting seeds for future events, only some of which pay off this season. It's obvious there's a lot more story to tell, with a detailed roadmap that's been in place from the beginning, and if they've got everything planned planned out in advance, there's no telling what they could be laying the groundwork for. There were plot twists in this season I never saw coming that had me on the edge of my seat more than once, and it only looks to get more intense from here. I was blown away by this show. Arcane is an absolute tour de force. The cast and crew have created a rich, expansive, fascinating world that can be every bit as beautiful as it is unforgiving, full of complex, multi-layered characters who can be heroic one minute and cruel the next, where someone with the best of intentions can be pushed to bastardize their own moral code just to get things done and find themselves doing things they once thought were depraved or unthinkable because the harsh realities of the world they live in have left them with no other choice, or even just because they want to. I can't rate this show highly enough, so you better believe this goes without saying. I didn't think any cartoon this year was even gonna come close to Invincible, but not only is Arcane every bit as good as that show, it might even be better. Hell, I'd absolutely put this right up there with Dark Crystal Age of Resistance as one of the best TV shows, animated or otherwise, that I've seen in years. I can't remember the last time I found a cartoon as enthralling as this one. This is powerful, masterful storytelling on display here, and between the brilliant characters, the fully realized, stunningly depicted universe, one hell of a voice cast, and an evolving narrative that only gets more compelling as the story goes on, I think Arcane has all the makings of a modern classic. If you've never played the game it's based on, don't let that stop you from diving into this show head first. I went in knowing nothing about the game, and I honestly think it plays even better that way because I didn't expect any of the big plot twists that players of the game might have anticipated. If Arcane and Castlevania are the new standard for video game adaptations, then I'll be damned if there isn't still hope for this genre. This is next level stuff. Netflix knocked it out of the park with this one, and with season 2 already in production, Arcane has set a very high bar for itself. I don't know how they can possibly top what they accomplished with this first season, but if any show can do it, it's this one. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to me gush about this incredible show. I don't get to review good things nearly enough, so this felt nice. And while you're here, don't forget to do all the YouTube things. Hit that thumbs up, share the video, subscribe to the channel, make sure you're still subscribed, because YouTube likes to pull a fast one and unsubscribe people sometimes. Ding the bell icon and follow my social media to be notified about new videos. I also have a live streaming channel, which is finally being updated now that I've found a workaround to YouTube being a jerk about that too. For God's sake, go watch Arcane League of Legends if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys again real soon.